morning, everybody. I'm Brian Glassberg. I've met many of you, supervisor of school counseling. Thank you for coming this morning. I want to tell you a little bit about the origin of these events, and we were surprised and excited by the response. So I first of all apologize for any of the confusion or difficulty with cutting off the registration. So Coffee with the Counselors started about 6 years ago or so, and they were small, sort of intimate events in our library, in our school library here. And, you know, we would have maybe 20 people, 30 people, 40 people, and it would be a little different kind of environment where we could have an alternative to the big nighttime events. The nighttime events were great, but we were also hearing from a lot of parents that they have too many things going on at night. There seems to be something every night, you know, in terms of your children, perhaps with sports or competitions or your own personal life. So we also wanted to add on some morning events, and just to create a different opportunity for people. So the pandemic obviously put a stop to that for a while. This is our first in-person Coffee with a Counselor that we've done in a couple years, and we're really happy to see you all and to see your faces. We were surprised by the response, by the amount of people who were eager to come in, and that's a good thing. That means that you are interested in our school, that you want to learn more. That's all wonderful. We are also recording the event, so you don't need to worry about taking pictures. This will all end up on our school counseling website. So we will do more of these kinds of events for different grade students and for different topics throughout the year. And we will try to figure out ways to accommodate the space and to make it as comfortable for everybody as possible. And you might have heard that J.P. Stevens is a touch overcrowded. And as you can see, that's why we're here in part of the gym to make enough room for everybody who wanted to come today. There are a few seats up at the front. If anybody who's standing would like to fill in those seats, I think that would be fine, and they did also go to get a few more seats. So, welcome here today. We're excited to have you. We have Mr. Stephen Miller and Ms. Kristen Desimone, two of our school counselors. We're eager to do this presentation to present to you about settling into the Hawk's Nest. And this is a presentation for 9th grade parents and some parents of students who are new to our district. It's great to see you. They have some wonderful information for you, and I hope that you enjoy and look forward to future events that we have this year. Thank you for coming.
Good morning. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Kristen Desimone. I'm lucky enough to do this presentation with Mr. Stephen Miller, and we're going to be on this journey with you. Your presence here really sends a message to us that you want to build a home and school alliance. And we're hoping that you take these tips to your children and even to your friends. So we're really appreciative that you are here today. I know you all have busy days things to go to today. So thank you for coming. So settling into the Hawk's Nest. I'm sure you all know that our mascot is the hawk. And we'll be presenting for you my homerooms. I am in charge of homeroom 911 and 912. Mr. Miller is in charge of 17, 18, and 19. Hopefully you do know your child's homeroom, because that is how we identify the students by homeroom. So the point of our journey today and our flight is we want to make sure you understand J.P. Stevens' resources that are out there. I went into the homerooms and I said for students to fill out a little piece of paper, and they did identify questions that they had. So this presentation is based on those questions, so it's student-driven. Also, we wanted to create an awareness of what is expected as a hawk. So those are our objectives that we want to make sure we meet at the end of the presentation. So you can look at these questions that we think are important to see if you can answer them before going through the presentation. So we really want to make sure these questions are answered for you by the end of the presentation. And this is what we want you to walk away with. So what is a GPA? When do students start accumulating a GPA? What to do if your student is absent? How many times can I be absent without penalty? How do I find out prerequisites prereqs for courses for classes that I want to take? Have you joined J.P. Stevens clubs? What happens if a student fails a class for the year? Not the marking period. What happens if they fail for the year? What if they fail health, which is one semester course? What happens if they fail health? Why should they be kind to their teachers? When does a student take driver's ed? And how are final grades determined? So these are things we just want you to walk away with by the end of the presentation. Okay, so here is our counseling department. I'm going to just introduce to you who we are, and this is our top hawk, Mr. Glassberg. We have 3 school secretaries. We have 2 college counselors, Ms. Nadell and Ms. Silverberg. And these college counselors, every student is assigned a college counselor, and again, it is derived by homeroom. So the odd homerooms, if your child's in 913, 915, any odd homeroom, they will have Ms. Susan Nadell. Okay, and those you can reach them through email. Children can fill out a pink pass to meet their college counselor, even as a 9th grader. We also have Ms. Janine Silverberg. She is the even homeroom, so 9-2, 9-4, and upward. Again, these people have a wealth of knowledge, and they visit the campuses. Edison really believes in getting your foot on the campus, and they send these counselors to those locations. So they really know the environment, and they also know what it takes to get into that campus. And here are 10 counselors. If you know your child's homeroom number, you can look up at the screen and see who the counselor is, okay? So Mr. Cooper is 9192, Mr. Cardillo is 9345, Ms. Lynn 9697, Ms. Randazza 989910, I'm 11 and 12, Rinaldi is 91314, Kandari 1516, Mr. Miller, 917, 18, 19, Mrs. Hall, 920, 21, 22, and Ms. Yildiz, 923, 24, 25. So hopefully you do know you can link them, because again, if you have a quick question, you can just send them an email, or your child can fill out a pink pass, but it's really important as a 9th grader, they know who this support person is. So transitioning to high school, why is it so difficult? Well, if you're a freshman or you're a new entrant, everything is new here. New classes, new teachers, and a lot of new peers are here. So be kind and be patient with your child, because it is an adjustment. They may not tell you that they are having a hard time, but you do want to ask questions and see how they are doing to gauge if they're finding it difficult. Are they making the transition? Try to get them to talk to you about it. And also, everyone needs to self-regulate and employ coping techniques. So the classes are hard here. What are they using to create a balance? Are they in a club? Can they speak to a friend? Do they enjoy music? So not just all academics. You want to make sure you too are modeling healthy coping strategies for your child. Do you exercise? Do you employ strategies that help your child deal with stress? So how do you learn the do's and don'ts of J.B. Stevens? I know many people here, this is all new to them, and we have the J.B. Stevens Student Handbook. So if you did not have an older child that went through J.B. Stevens, I would say this is the best reference on school policies and procedures that we have. It's a helpful resource on our website to let you navigate there. So how do you get there? You go to the J.B. Stevens website. It will be linked to this presentation, and this is exactly what it will look like when you get on it. And you will then click on menu. Once you click on menu, you'll see there are many different things at the top there besides menu that you could also explore later. Parent portal is linked, lunch menu, and quick links. But if you want the student handbook, you're pressing on menu. Once there, you'll see at the top, it's student handbook. I have 3 sons of my own. They are not in high school yet, but the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to print out the student handbook. Because where I live, it's not going to be the same as J.P. Stevens. I'm really going to spend some time and read that document. I also think for my own children, and I invite you to do this, is print out the program of studies. I think those are the two handbooks that you should become familiar with as parents. Because unfortunately, our children are not going to read through that. So, you're leading the way on that. Student handbook. So you want to read through that because there's very pertinent information regarding attendance, transportation, school newspaper, all different things. Also, once you're in the student handbook, easily you can press Control F and you can identify what you're looking for: dress code, or GPA, or college visits. How many do I get without being penalized for being absent? So this is a great document for you to have. In the handbook, there's things like how to calculate the GPA. What if your family becomes homeless? Attendance procedures, dress code, student identification needed. What happens if they cut a class? So there are many things in here that you would know before maybe they even needed to know. All right, you would know how to get that information. I do want to talk about the transcript. All right, they're building their transcript right now. Right now, their transcript is empty. There are many hopes and dreams that are available to them. It's totally a blank slate. Okay, so this is a very exciting time for them. The student transcript is their scholastic record that colleges will see. So you're going to see up here, I've circled freshman year. This is what they're working on. This is blank for them. So it's the freshman year, the sophomore year, the junior year, and at the bottom, the senior year. Now, let's take a look at the freshman year. It's going to identify all the courses. See, the student is taking English honors, Geometry 1, Biology honors. Look at the final grade. I want to drive this home to parents. It's only the final average. Colleges are not going to see marking period 1, 2, 3, 4. They only see the final average. So if your child gets a B in a marking period, or they dip down to a C+, I need you to make sure you're not getting them anxious. They only see the final average. Okay, I do want you to leave with that today. Many children come down to the office very upset about a marking period grade. I think they recover. All right, so you want to make sure that they're resilient, you want to build them up, and you want to remind them, listen, we make mistakes, that was a hard test, you're only going to see the final average. They're also going to see the credits earned, they're going to see the GPA, and it shows the level of difficulty your child pursued in their program of studies. This document tells a story, and look at the sophomore year. Maybe they moved up a level, maybe they moved down. It's the college admissions officer is looking for trends and patterns. Maybe there was a loss in the family, maybe the family went through a divorce. There are ways to explain patterns and trends. So I don't want people to get their student upset. The counselor is writing a letter of recommendation that goes along with this document that the admissions counselor will look side by side and see what's the story of this student. The transcript is the golden ticket into college, okay? So you want them working hard on their classes, okay? So again, transcripts only show final grades. And now I see the counselors have entered the room, so you can see their faces. We show them at the presentation, but we have Mrs. Lynn, Ms. Gildez, Mr. Cardillo, Mrs. Randazza, Mr. Cooper, and Mrs. Kandari. So again, their student is linked to this person through their homeroom number. Okay? Thank you. Thanks. Also on the transcript that I want to bring to your attention at the bottom is the weighted GPA and the unweighted GPA. We'll talk more about the difference, but that's what the admissions counselor is really looking at, okay? Also, you'll see on this document their absences. Absences do matter. If it's a medical issue, again, that will be explained if you want that explained in the letter. But it shows trends. Were they on time? Were they attending class? So they do look at that also. So this is the most important document besides the letter and the SAT, ACT scores, and it tells a story. GPA is at the bottom. Yearly student attendance is recorded. Courses taken for college credit are also documented. We'll talk more about that with our MC program. When evaluating prospective students, programs will try to determine patterns or trends. Were they struggling? Were they succeeding? Did they overcome that struggle maybe the next year? The admissions process doesn't end with the first transcript submitted. So colleges are going to get that final transcript, the initial transcript, and sometimes colleges will want a mid-year transcript in the senior year to see marking period 1, marking period 2 of the senior year. But all I really want you to focus on is where the red circle is. Building your child up, making sure they feel confident and that they can be successful. So even if they're not doing well in Algebra 2 honors, maybe they're reaching out for support through the counselor or a tutor, but you want to build them up, okay? You don't want to make them feel bad about any bad grades. Don't worry, it's only marking period 2. You could recover marking period 3 and 4. I do want to drive that home. So how does your child soar in their classes? Well, taking notes, meeting with that teacher for extra help, really cultivating a relationship with the teacher, having a study buddy in the class. I'm sure you remember taking courses and having a friend that you talk to about the class and studying together, using Google Calendar to get organized, consulting the school counselor, studying, being responsible, requesting an NHS tutor during the study hall of an upperclassman that maybe took the course, consulting a family member about their high school journey. You know, it's not easy. Maybe conveying to your child that you struggled in a language class or an English class. So really letting them know that nobody's perfect, right? We're all trying to do better, and it's really nice if the parent can divulge some of their struggles with their child. And what supports did you use in the past that were successful for you? For me, geometry was hard. I was able to meet a friend and study together. And it's that rapport that I gained with students. You know, this is what happened with me. What could you do? What will work for you? So what happens if a student fails a course for the year? Not the marking period, for the year. You're coming from Woodrow, John Adams, maybe TJ across town. The middle school, they don't have summer school. But at the high school, we count credit because you need credit in order to go to college. So if you're not keeping up with your coursework and you get an F in the class, then you won't earn any points for that marking period. All right, so if they do get an F for a marking period, that's 0 points. This makes you vulnerable to have to be enrolled in the summer school. High school is all about receiving credit. All freshmen will receive 5 credits per course. So if you fail the course, you get 0 credit. A final grade of an F is reflected on your transcript. And you don't want that to happen because they'll see it on the transcript. If you pass all 7 classes, you'll earn 35 credits. If you're getting an F in the course for the year, you'll go to summer school and you'll have to remediate and learn that material again. Another program besides summer school is something called credit completion. Even though your child may have earned a grade for the course, they may have missed too many classes. So they're required to have, their attendance here, and if they have too many unexcused absences, they are going to make them stay in summer school for credit completion. It's based on attendance. So you can't have more than 6 absences in a full year course. So if they're taking biology and they're absent 7, 8 times, they're going to have to go to credit completion in the summer. Now, as the parent, you are allowed 3 times to call into the attendance office, but they can't be consecutive days. So when they're absent, you call in and say they're not feeling well. You can do that 3 times, right? You don't require a doctor's note. But if it goes over 3, you do need a doctor's note to validate that they're home and they were ill. And we don't want them here if they were sick. We want them to stay home and get better. Please just notice semester courses like psychology, sociology, you're allowed 3 class absences. Gym, 4 class absences, and health 2. That doesn't mean that they can't be absent. That just means you need a note. You need a doctor's note when they're exceeding that, so that it becomes excused. required to take in order to graduate? 4 years of English is required, 4 years of math, including Algebra 1 and Geom. They must take science 3 years, and biology has to be written on the transcript. They will take 1 year of a world language. They will take 2 years of U.S. history, U.S. 1 and U.S. 2. They will take 2 years of a world language. That's the minimum. Mr. Miller will go into depth about how many years for world language for a competitive school, college-wise. They need 4 years of gym, health, and they will take a semester of driver's ed. They need 1 class of a career education and consumer course. They need one year of a visual performing art, music, choir, art, 3D design. There are many different courses to fulfill these requirements. Advanced courses, that just means of their own choosing, and 130 credits to graduate. Most students exceed that, okay? But that's the minimum, 130. So how is an absence excused? If you are sick, I just want to review this, don't come to school. Sick days verified by a non-family member doctor's note, signed and stamped by the doctor's office within 48 hours. Okay, because you can't come in with doctor's note 2 months later. It has to be in a timely manner. You also have to, those 3 phone calls that you get has to be the day of. So just a quick reminder. 3 single-day absences are allowed as excused without the doctor's note. A phone call by a parent is required on the day. When they're absent from school, regardless of the reason, they're required to make up their assignments and contact your teacher that you're out. If you have any doctor's notes, you can send that to madeline.larosa@edison.com@k12.mj.us. So that's the person you would scan the doctor's note to. Okay, you could also give it to your child to give to the attendance office, but it's easy to do, and if you do it, you get it out of the way. You don't have to worry about them getting an unexcused absence. I think that's the biggest thing that students struggle with is the attendance policy. They're not used to that in middle school, so you may want to remind them. So some tips for organization. Making a calendar to plan out the month ahead, revisiting that calendar on Sunday to prepare for the week. You can set up alerts on your phone. I do it myself to keep track of different assignments. Make a specific folder in Google Drive for each of your classes. When the year is over, you can archive those files from your old classes so that it won't take up space. Use a standard naming convention when labeling the documents, like English and then a novel, kite runner, essay. So just different ways that you can help your student get organized. Many students, they need to work on building their relationship with their teacher because it does matter. They're collaborating, they're learning from this person. They have a wealth of knowledge, the teachers, to share with them. They have college educations, master's degrees, subject-specific content, knowledge, experiences, and they spend hours preparing and assessing student work. They're dedicated to their professions, and you want to give them respect, and you'll earn respect. So kindness does matter. And it really matters because of the college admissions process. These are the people writing their letters. These are the people defining who your child is to the college admissions officer. As a senior, they select teachers for letters of recommendation, and we want that teacher to high-five the admissions counselor. Yes, you want this child on your campus. These are teachers that have they've seen your child overcome challenges. They know they're active class participants. They're aware that these children are change agents in the J.P. Stevens community, and they can elaborate on the hardworking character. And we want to cultivate these relationships as freshmen. They'll need 2 in academic courses. And sometimes they have these teachers twice, even better, and really get to know them. So it does really matter for the college admissions process. They can explain who your child is to the officer. What if I have college-specific questions? Well, again, I spoke to you earlier about our fantastic college and career counselors, Odd No More Homerooms, Miss Susan Nadell. and even number homerooms, Miss Silverberg, and they make applying to college, they take it to the next level. Their goal is to develop and maintain relationship with colleges around the world. They attend tours, they host college rep visits, they conduct parent and student workshops, essay boot camps, paying for college. They review college admissions essays, they're experts on that. They coordinate and teach the RISE program that we have going on. It's resume and interviewing skills for everyone. So it's really, Edison is so fortunate to have college counselors. I don't know many school districts that employ college counselors, so it's really, it's make your child well equipped for the process. A really big thing that I'm learning as a parent is I have to monitor my child's social media presence. I didn't have this growing up. I feel fortunate that I didn't, but our children do. IvyWise is an independent consulting company, and they suggest students use the grandparent rule to guide their posting behavior. If you don't want your grandparents to view that post, avoid writing it. Students regularly report students' social media posts. They come down and tell us if something's inappropriate. Vice principals that get involved, principals, counselors, teachers. We've had officers sadly involved in the past. College admissions officers can Google social media presence, and they take it very seriously. It could prevent you from going to a university that you're interested in. So please, parents, be vigilant, teach them well about their social media presence, especially if they're responding to a sporting event on Twitter, inappropriate language, maybe the team didn't win. But you don't want that out there. It is a social media footprint. Things will be easier if students attend class on time, they adhere to course deadlines, they reach out to their counselor for help. Again, they cultivate that relationship with the teacher, get a study buddy for their classes, join a club or two. I want to emphasize that, a club or two. We don't want to overwhelm them. Request a National Honor Society tutor during study hall, and be proactive about things that are happening. Now it's time for those student-created questions that I told you about that I did in homeroom for our freshmen, and these came directly from our class of 2026 Hawks, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Miller.
Thank you, everyone. Nice to see some familiar faces from Jay and I. A little bit more gray in my beard this time around. Okay, so one of the questions that the students like to ask is, when do the marking periods end? It's a really simple answer that's available on Google. We've attached a hyperlink to the slide. If you just click on that text, it'll bring you to this calendar if you wanted to see like those little details and the color codes. But to answer the question, the marking period end dates are November 4th, January 27th, April 11th, and then June 20th. Something that we get a lot from our students because they're so motivated, they want to take some extra classes. Are there any other electives, like personal financial literacy, that I can take online? No. Currently, students can only use the New Jersey Virtual School for Financial Literacy. I've seen lots of my 9th graders have already taken that this summer. It's awesome. It's not too late. We have 4 more years that we're able to do that. On top of that, students age 15 and older and in their sophomore year may be eligible to take classes at Middlesex College through the High School Scholars Program. There's a link with some information about that. Contact your child's counselor in the spring to find out more. Again, just going back to the criteria that I mentioned at the beginning, if they're in 9th grade, they will not be able to take those classes this summer. So it's something to look forward to for sophomore year. Okay. So what's the difference between a weighted GPA and an unweighted GPA? Traditionally, GPA is calculated on an unweighted scale, measured on the scale of 4.0. It doesn't take the difficulty of a student's coursework. So you might think a student's final grade is determined by just averaging the numerical, like the 97 plus an 86, doing that for all 4 marking periods and dividing by 4. But that's not how we determine final grades. On page 32 of the handbook, you'll see a similar graphic that explains the letter value, the letter with the numerical value that we associate. So an A plus is 10 points, an A 9, A minus 8, etc. So I just want to go through a quick example of how you can calculate a student's final grade. So if a student earns the following grades, marking period 1, if they earned a B, go over the chart, we'll see that's a 6. Marking period 2, they did a little better. They got an A minus, that's 8 points. Marking period 3, if they get an A, that would be 9 points, and a B plus is 7. So if we take those numbers, add it up, we get to 30, divide that by 4, and we see that it becomes a 7.5. We're always going to round up for a situation like that, so that student's final grade would be an A minus. So it's an important thing to talk about with your child because they're going to think that it's just like that numerical value of the 97 plus a 96, etc. But really we have to go with this scale that we have here. Okay, I know Ms. Desimone talked about the importance of clubs. This is actually a picture from last year's club fair. It was a blast. It's a lot of fun. We open up this wall and we have this whole entire gym filled with students. Okay, there's over 70 clubs that are offered at JP Stevens. If you click on this link, you'll see the list here. Okay, this is something that counselors are going into homerooms and talking to students about because I really advise that they look at this ahead of time before they go to the club fair. So the clubs are broken out into different categories, right? So we have academic clubs, arts clubs, community service, the honor societies, which they're not eligible for in 9th grade, but they will be, so it's good to think about that. The literary publications, leadership clubs, and the miscellaneous interest clubs. All right, so not only does it have the supervisor's name, if you click on any of these, there's a brief description of the club. All right, and I always tell my students to look at that because when they do go to the club fair, I'm going to be honest, it's a little bit overwhelming. There's hundreds of students in here. It's in October, so it's still going to be hot. And it's loud because students are excited. They're trying to generate interest in their club. So it can be overwhelming for a new student. So I always say, like, have a plan in place of like the 2 or 3 clubs that you want to go visit, where you can sign up to your email and get those alerts. Now, occasionally you might be walking around and see a new club. That's okay, but mainly I think it's really good to have a plan of attack. Okay. So we will be hosting the JPS Club Fair on October 6th after school in the gym. So if you could do us a favor and just remind your child that, hey, there's this club fair going on October 6th. They should have heard about it already on announcements and on the JPS Weekly, but sometimes we have students who are not paying peak attention that early in the morning when they get those things. So each club also contributes a slide to the virtual club fair. This is one of the positive impacts of COVID is we developed having a virtual club fair. If students weren't comfortable going to the actual club fair or they couldn't get a ride home, we do have a slideshow that every club maintains. Now you can see that this is from last year, but the information still works. It just so happens this is my club that is listed first. All the information is still valid. All the emails are still going to work. The only thing that's out of date, honestly, is that 5 of these students have graduated. But otherwise, it's really helpful, and it lets you get a feel for what the club is. Right? Some of them have pictures or videos that describe the club, and lots of helpful links. Okay. And again, this is all linked right at the bottom of this presentation. Do I have to join a club? No, you don't have to join a club. It's not a requirement, but it's highly encouraged. Students get to know more Hawks, they can support the JP community, and become part of the school culture. All right, it gives them a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging. It's really important. And you want to do it for the right reasons. You're not just doing it to impress colleges. You do want to make connections. A common question that I get from 9th graders is, how can I start my own club? That's something that we try to avoid because it takes a long time for a club to get off the ground. So rather than starting a new club where you have to recruit members, find a staff member that's willing to be the advisor, and then get it approved by the administration and by the Board of Education. It's always a better idea to work your ideas into a currently existing club. So from that huge club list, you try to find something that's related, and those advisors are willing to change things. I know for Hawks, we're constantly changing based on what our students view the club as. So we would recommend that instead of starting a new club. Okay. This is something that we get typically in sophomore year. Should I take a world language for all 4 years? You might remember from Ms. Desimone's slides, you only need 2 years of the same world language to graduate. Right? So students have to make a tough decision at the end of their sophomore year. Oh, do I want to continue with Spanish or Latin? Highly competitive colleges really like to see 3 years. Okay, that doesn't mean that your child has to. If there's like a good reason that maybe they need to fit in like a band club or a business honors elective, maybe that is a good enough reason. But typically those highly competitive colleges really like to see at least 3 years. What is the PSAT and when do I take it? So the preliminary SAT, it's a practice test for the Scholastic Aptitude Test, the SAT. You can only take the PSAT once per year, and our Hawks usually take it in the 10th and 11th grade. You might know that your child, if they were in Edison schools, they did take it in 8th grade. So 9th grade, we typically don't test them, but we definitely do for 10th and 11th. The exciting thing that comes with the PSAT is that that's how students qualify for the National Merit Scholarship. So if you earn a high score on the PSAT in your junior year, I just got done meeting with my seniors where I got to give them that great news, the exciting letter, and that's just another thing that they could add to their resume when they're applying to colleges. Okay, so 10th and 11th graders will be taking it on October 12th. Don't worry, the 9th graders are still going to be in the building. We're going to have alternative planning for them. Okay. What's the SAT and does it affect my placement at JPS? So the SAT acts as like an entrance exam that many colleges use to determine admittance to their institution. The test is given through College Board. There is tons of information on their website if you are interested, but we really emphasize taking the test after you've had 10 months of Algebra 2. If you haven't had that experience in Algebra 2, you're really doing your child a disservice. So some sophomores take it, and by the spring of their junior year, most Hawks have taken it. Students should take the SAT prior to the fall of their senior year. That's just because, and as I'm dealing with my seniors now, who are like, they're very stressed out about the college application process. It's so new to them. And for the ones that are on top of that, still studying for the SAT, it's just a very big burden. So I would suggest getting it out of the way. There's always an SAT in August. So I suggest having your child take it in August. So by the time September rolls around, they're ready to just come to school, worry about their schoolwork and their college apps. Can I take a course over the summer to get into a higher level placement? Typically, there are no shortcuts to getting into a more rigorous placement. It's nearly impossible to cram a 10-month class into 2 months in the summer. So there are rare exceptions on this rule. Students should speak to their counselor during the spring to discuss summer learning opportunities. And I'm not intentionally, well, I guess I am intentionally being vague, because the Board of Education, they can come up with programs, but they usually decide upon that, usually in February. So at this point, it would be out of turn for me to make any predictions on things like that. So again, talk to your child's counselor in the springtime. All right, student asks, how do I move up in my math placement? Again, this is something that is reviewed annually. The Board of Education takes a look at how our students are doing in current classes, and we can make decisions like, oh, okay, so the students that we let in to this AP class, it seemed like they really struggled, and so it was doing them a disservice. So they do review that. The placement criteria from last year is available on the website. All right, so if you are interested in looking at any of these, again, this is for last year, So you can expect this to change around late February, early March. Some people get confused when you click on it. You just have to click on it a second time to actually get it to pull up. All right, but wait, they have one of these for each and every subject area. If you're looking for just an idea of what they would have to do. I always tell my students, if you're hoping to move up to a higher level, really good idea. You have to talk to your teacher about it at some point, just to plant that seed in their head, because eventually the content area supervisors will say, okay, give me a list of the students that you would like to bump up into accelerated or bump up into honors. And if your child has had that conversation with their teacher, that's going to be the name that the teachers think about. Okay. Also, those teachers will be more cued into like giving specific feedback, like, hey, if you're hoping to join an honors class, you really got to improve your participation in class, or we really need you to be turning in the homework on time. Feedback like that is really important. All right, how do I figure out my college major and career? Whoa, slow down, Hawks. It's October of your freshman year. I always tell my students, it's okay if you graduate, not totally sure of what you want, but you want to have an idea. You want to narrow it down at some point. So throughout school, students will take assessments on SCORE to discover what they want to pursue in the future. Then we also host career fairs, college fairs, and college visits to expose students to exciting opportunities. And I'm going to go in depth a little bit more on SCORE here. I love SCORE. Like a walking advertisement for this company. Because since we've changed to this company, it's just opened up a lot of possibilities. SCORE allows students and parents to research colleges, and it's really useful for counselors because that's how we send out all of their documents when they're applying. But we don't just use it in their senior year. We start pretty early on with linking students' interests and aptitude to college majors and careers. So what students will be doing in the coming years, taking assessments. In the past, we have used companies that do interest inventories to find out what are students interested in. The problem with that is that for students, like, they only are interested in things that they're aware of, right? So if both of their parents work in computer science, they're going to be predisposed to thinking that, oh, I want to be a programmer when I graduate. And then there are students who maybe don't have those connections. So SCORE is really good because it takes into account their interests, but it's a very small piece of that. In fact, you can see right here, this is a screenshot of one of the career interest and aptitude assessments pages that I took. And you can look at your interest fit and your aptitude fit. Aptitude is so important. Beyond what they're actually interested in, what are they good at? That should factor into what they do beyond high school. All right, and then so based on that, you get this really cool sheet where they could it brings up careers that might apply to them, and then students could research it. I know for me, the results are pretty spot on, like psychologist and being a counselor and maybe a secondary school teacher. So we're hoping that students have a similar experience to this. SCORE can also help students build a resume. This is now the second year that we're using it. So the more that we use it, the more we have found new and exciting things for students to use. Okay. On the note of careers. All right, what if I'm 15 and I want to secure a job? So when your child turns 15, if they do want to find a job, they have to go interview, they have to apply and interview. Once they are promised a job, and so I put down the 3 of the heavy hitters that I get very often, students working at ShopRite, Target, Kumon, or one of the other tutoring services. Once they have a promise of employment, they can come down to the counseling office, and our secretaries will fill out those working papers. All right? So students are also asking, how can I get technology support? Or something that we're getting a lot recently is like, I really want to get a bus and nobody's getting back to me. My best advice that I can give you, because I as a counselor cannot do anything to help them, but we have this help desk that we've set up for technology and for transportation. We've poured resources into it, we've poured time into it as a district. And the reason that we want to be able to do that is because a lot of people have said like, oh, nobody's getting back to me in a timely manner. So these help desks, when you submit a ticket, they make it so the top levels of the administrative team can view how many tickets are outstanding, how many haven't had a response yet. And if I show you, like I'll go to the technology support desk, this is something that staff members have to use too. So this is mine, it automatically saved my devices that I've used. You can see the tickets that I've submitted and had resolved. It's really handy, and it lets us know and the administrative team know how we are doing. So definitely use this if you are having issues with transportation, enrollment, or technology. Okay, this is a slide that I added very late last night because I'm getting so many emails about the early college program. So, all Edison students have the opportunity to earn an associate's degree or college credits from Middlesex College by enrolling in specific courses offered at JP Stevens. With successful completion of the coursework, they are going to have that opportunity to either get the associate's degree or build credits so that when they do go to college, they go there with some credits in their back pocket. So it's super helpful. Now this program, it's in its third year, 2.5 years. And so we're still learning things and adding courses to this. Last spring, there was an hour-long presentation that the administrative team did on it, so I cannot possibly go into all the nuances here today, but I did link to that presentation. Now, what you need to know as a parent, the deadline to submit is this weekend. So there was an interest form that was sent out last year when your child was in middle school. At that point, that's when you would have indicated that you are interested, you want your child to be enrolled in these classes. If you did that, fantastic. You should be in those courses that you indicated interest for. If you haven't, they're not letting us make changes to student schedules at this point. But if you want to know, do they happen to be in a class that they could earn college credit for? Log into the parent portal and pull up your child's transcript. Now when you look at this, you're going to see the DCC, stands for dual credit class. If your child has that, that means that they are in the right class to get dual credit. And there's no additional coursework. They don't have to sit for a final exam. They don't need to go to Middlesex to finish that course. The course is going to stay the same, whether it's for dual credit or not. So it's just a question of if they are going to get those college credits for it. All right. If you have further questions about that, please reach out to your child's counselor. If you are one of my parents and you reached out to me, I'm very good at answering emails. I was answering until like 10 last night, but I know that I have like another 30 to go through. So please bear with me. We'll get back to you. Okay. So, our greatest hope is that your student, your child, finds their footing here and adds value to our community. We really want to get them involved. And we also want to look out for the whole child, right? So Ms. Desimone talked about the importance of having balance in their life. As parents, please work with us. Let your counselor know if you think like, hey, my child's feeling a lot of pressure from seeing their friends are enrolled in lots of clubs and things like that. It's not for everybody. So work with your child's counselor, get on the same page so that we can give a consistent message, all right? Because even though they may not always show it, they really care what you think. They really do. That's something that's very common in 12th grade is like the students, like that's their first concern when they're hearing back from colleges. Is like, what do their parents think about it? So please, love your child. Let them know that you love them, whether or not they're in those honors classes, all right? Because again, they do really care what you think and they need that reassurance. A little bit louder.
How we're going to end it. This is myself as a senior at Homedale High School, talking about being a new student and not knowing anyone, but joining clubs, trying to do track and failing, and trying to do softball and failing, and then I found a team to be on. So it's very important. And there's Mr. Miller. I guess, during his football career. But I'm not going to lie, high school was not an easy adjustment as a new student. Peer groups were challenging and to try to navigate, but clubs and teams that did help me. So it's truly a journey. So allow your child to explore different things, fail at some things, and to find out who they are. I'm just going to end with this silly little poem. It's called The Land of Happy. Have you been to the land of happy, where everyone's happy all day, where they joke and they sing of the happiest things and everything's jolly and gay? There's no one unhappy and happy. There's laughter and smiles galore. I have been to the land of happy, what a bore. And that's just the message we want to send out to you, that it's not going to be a perfect journey, but with supports, with J.P. Stevens resources, with clubs and teams, and cultivating a relationship with the teacher, it's going to be a great time. So we hope you enjoyed the presentation. We hope you can answer those questions that you got at the beginning. If you have further questions, there's an exit ticket. You can scan this different code here. If you need support, you can email your child's counselor. And if we will take a couple questions now. Okay, if anybody still has a question, in the back.
How is the attendance that is reported in the transcript calculated?
Say it one more time.
The attendance in the transcript,
Attendance on the
does it
transcript.
include the excused, unexcused, 3 unexcused?
It's reported on the transcript. It'll show the unexcused and excused days, right? I think so. Yeah, let's go back and look at it. Yeah, if you have to leave to go to work, that's fine. We'll stay with the people who still have questions. So it is recorded. Just tell us the number of absences. It tells the number.
So if you miss a class
If you miss for a doctor's appointment, you'll have a doctor's note, so we'll be excused. It just counts the absences that I believe are unexcused. That's what I'm thinking.
so even after out of the 3 unexcused absences that you get,
I really can't hear you, but the letter of recommendation, if there is a medical issue, that will be explained.
I'll call in. If I call in,
Call into the attendant's office.
and
3 of them. You get 3 of those. An excused day. It's an excused absence. You get 3 of those without a doctor's note. And then once you have doctor's notes, those 2 are excused. It's unexcused days that we're worried about because they count towards credit completion. You don't want that. In the back?
Right, so that's a unique circumstance that nobody saw coming. So if your child really wants to get the associate's degree, they would likely have to take it in another. I think it's a good idea to talk to the counselor to see if anything can be done about it. Yeah, it's a unique circumstance. It's a good question. So it's about the dual credits, and will all colleges accept credits? So the answer to that is no, they won't. So the law is that all schools in New Jersey do have to accept that. So if they stay in state, absolutely, it's going to be accepted. That might also be the case with other states, we just can't guarantee it. So I would suggest, like when I'm talking to my juniors and seniors, I always say, hey, if you have dual credit or you've taken AP exams, always speak to that college about what they will accept. A lot of colleges have it online. I know I hosted a college visit with Purdue. They have it right on their website where you can just click and they show you what they accept. So that's really nice. So for the dual credit program, do you have to spend time at Middlesex College? So if you are going to get an associate's degree, yes, you would have to. That's a requirement for all of the associate's degrees. If you're just getting some credits, no, you don't have to. Yes? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Mandatory for accumulating.
Oh, question. And I like this because we're getting some of the misconceptions out of the way. So, volunteer hours, they are not required. There's a couple schools in the state that require volunteer hours. J.P. Stevens does not require volunteer hours. Now, it's still recommended that they do some, find something that they're passionate about, and do some hours. So, like I always tell my students, if you're doing more than 50 hours in your whole career, I think that's way too much. They have so much to do as students and as people that any more than 50 in their 4 years here isn't too much. Volunteer hours would be if you just wanted to put that on your application going to college.
It's not really about the hours, it's about changing the child, right? It's about, did they have a good experience? Did they give back to the community? How is it changing them as a person? It's not really hour specific.
Right, there's no set number of hours that a college is going to say, oh, they didn't hit 50, so we're not going to accept them. They just want it to be meaningful.
You will need a certificate if you want to have us write about it in the letter of rec because it validates that they were at the senior home.
Yeah, we do require some verification of the hours, whether that's done on a log and signed off on, or done in their senior year, or given a certificate. We will work with students to make sure that it's verified. Okay?
If you are having honors on the state, it's going to be right. But if you are taking 80 class, will that go to heaven?
You're doing that class to take the test. You're taking the course to prepare you for the test.
AP and honors are weighted the same in our district in terms of the grade point average weighting.
And then we have
Not for 9th graders. The SAT this year is for 10th and 11th. They took it last year in 8th grade.
so regarding AP, is it like that? AP classes for
It is not mandatory to take AP classes like college. Yes?
Do all kids have weighted and unweighted average? Because if they are not in the honors or
So yes, every student will have an unweighted and weighted GPA. Just so you know, the GPA reports are run after the end of the school year, so your 9th graders won't have a GPA until, I would say, July. Is usually, no, maybe a little. Okay. July, August, September is when you would actually see the GPA populate on their website. The reason for that is we account for their final grades, and then we also account for students who may have had to do credit completion or summer school.
But if they never were part of a honors or accelerated class,
Then they would be the same. That is possible. I have students that are seniors where the unweighted is exactly the same as the weighted. Yes? Yes, so every school in New Jersey is required to accept the credits. The question becomes, how do they accept it? So if you were going to be a biology major, they're not going to say, oh, you took AP biology, now you don't have to take our biology class at Rutgers. They would typically do something where those credits would count as elective credits. So they're still getting credit for it, it just doesn't always allow them to skip that class in college. Sure. So we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but I would assume that in the springtime we're going to send out a similar form where people can indicate which classes they're interested in taking for credit. So it's not too late to get some credits under their belt. Yes? I'm sorry, what's that? Yes, so the question was about, again, the absences on the transcript. It is just their total number of absences, right? Yep, both of them. Yeah. Yes?
So when the students students take the SPOL test, will the parents be informed? When do they take it?
So the score test, I'm not exactly sure when they're going to be taking it this year, but typically we do send out some notification to parents so that we can say, hey, why don't you, this is a good time to connect with your student's account so that you can view some of those assessments.
Usually in January and somewhere around there.
Right, it's typically in January.
So what, because I have 2 kids in high school, so last year was it sent? When did this start? Last year?
So it's SCORE we opened up last year. I believe we did it with.
We started it on a sort of trial basis where we were doing it alongside Naviance, and then SCORE replaced Naviance now. So it's a similar program, but it's a little bit more user-friendly in terms of the college application piece with our older students.
So I think the question is which grade?
When did they take it?
Oh, I believe we did the 10th graders.
I think it was 10th graders that we did it with last year, and we had them do the assessments at home this year because we wanted to get more participation. We're actually going to try to work that into their time here at the high school. So we can say, all right, now is the time where everyone is going to open up their MacBooks and everyone's going to do the assessment. Yes? Yeah. So the question is, how do colleges know whether a student is taking an AP exam? So on their transcript, it'll say if you took the AP course at JP Stevens, but there are students who take AP courses and don't wind up taking the exam. The AP exam scores you would actually send on your own. Yes? So the requirements for courses, you might remember I had a slide that linked to last year's placement criteria. Here we go. So all of that would be listed on this criteria. So if you wanted to look at science, click on science, click on it again. And so we can zoom in on.
So this is on the district website, and the district approves placement criteria usually sometime in the winter months, January, February approximately, sometimes a little later depending upon how quickly they agree on certain things. And then it's posted on the district website, and that's what the placement is.
Right.
You can get a sense by going there now, you can get a sense of what the requirements are approximately, because they don't change in big ways, they tend to change in small ways.
Yes. For the most part, yes.
Will this presentation be sent out via email?
So based on whether they meet the criteria, it's also a conversation that they're having in classrooms where teachers are talking about, hey, we're looking into placements for next year. So this is the criteria, and every teacher posts it in their Google Classroom. And on top of that, every single counselor has a classroom that we also share. So if you're going to get email blasts from him, the students are getting it from their teachers and their counselors, they will know when is the opportunity to make those applications.
And every child sits down one-on-one with the counselor at scheduling time, and that's a time where they could say, hey, what am I eligible for? I'm interested in this. They could ask these questions, and you could ask these questions.
So there's no chart that tells you what's equivalent. The question is do we want to excel in academics or in arts or sports? There's no chart that lines up how a college is going to view that. Hopefully it would be some sort of a balance. But when you are applying to a college, your transcript tells a story, right? To see okay, this student clearly focused on business classes. And then it comes down to their personal essay and the counselor recommendations and the teacher recs that really tie everything together and really explain who the child is. Okay, so every college is going to view this differently. Yes? So the question was, how can we tell which classes count for the weighted and unweighted GPA? So if we go back to that chart from earlier, if you know whether it's an accelerated that means that it's an accelerated class. If it has an H next to it, that means honors, or an AT would count in the same category as honors as well. So every student is getting it, no matter which class they are in. Yes? So the question is, in addition to recording, do we have this presentation or have we sent it? So it's already posted on our counseling website. So if you go to JP Stevens, you click on the 3 horizontal lines here. You're going to go to the counseling department, right? Coffee with the counselors. You'll scroll down. Anytime we have an event as counselors that we have recorded or we have slides for, it goes right up here. So the freshman FAQ student presentation is what you just saw. And then you can see the seniors did all that stuff.
I'll just add to that. So it will stay there temporarily, and then it will get archived on the right-hand side in the appropriate category. So I will move it over to the 9th grade tab after some period of time so our front page doesn't get too large. And you can, even if you wanted to, you're welcome to look ahead and see some of the things that have happened in the past with 10th, 11th, and 12th grade families, so you know what to expect. But that's where that will be housed.
Right. Yes? So the dual credit, remember we already talked and said that right now we're not allowing schedule changes, so it would be different based on every student. I don't want to give a number. I believe that it's a maximum of 2 for freshmen that they would qualify for, but I could be off on that, so don't quote me on that.
It's something to talk about in the spring.
Yeah.
It's already passed, so whatever they have, each year we kind of figure it out with DCC. That's what they're currently in. So in the spring, it's a different conversation.
Some freshmen are eligible for world language. Most freshmen are eligible for world language dual credit, but you would have gotten it, you all got an email from me that explains it. So if you have that question, we've been answering those questions nonstop, so feel free to reach out about the Middlesex College dual credit.
So if you can view the course code, which I'm hearing from some parents that they cannot find the course code, so that's why I put in this graphic right here. If you pull up your child's transcript, which you should be able to do, you can just look at their courses, and if it says the DCC right here, that stands for dual credit course. So MC is more of like an internal code, and just from talking to some parents that had difficulty from finding it, I'm directing them to look at the transcript for the DCC, because I know for a fact you can see that. Correct, for this year. Next year's a different story. Yes? So apparently on the form, it's the Middlesex form where they have to, it's a Middlesex form where they have to select their grade level. Apparently there's no drop down for 9.
You can print the form and you can just fill it out and do that. And I believe that's probably because they're using the same, Middlesex is using the same form that they use for the other thing that Mr. Miller spoke about earlier, the high school scholars program. I believe they're using the same form, and for that you need to be in 10th grade. That's probably why. I will let Middlesex know. And just so that you know, Middlesex creates the forms, the deadlines, and the rules. So we use what they give us. But I will let them know that. That's a good point. Thank you. But you can print it, fill it out, and then just scan it back in. Same thing, 2025. Yes, so the student told me about that as well.
Right, so I think it would probably be just a better idea to just print it out and handwrite it.
Yeah.
They're going to accept it.
Yes.
I think it's... Okay.
Yeah, so we have to look at, if you're not sure how to read the chart that I sent, you need to contact the counselor or contact me or have your child come in and I'll look at the chart with them. Okay? We don't want this to be just a session about how to fill out the Middlesex College form. We're happy to answer that. We've been answering them a lot individually outside of this presentation. We're happy to do that. You can call me today, you can email me today, and you'll get a response today with the answer. But I want to make sure that we cover, this is about ninth grade things in general. Yeah.
So financial literacy course that the students who completed in 2 weeks of time, how to change and ready for what's the process behind it?
So if your child takes the, I'm sorry.
No. So if they already took it this past summer, then it should already be on their transcript. And so it comes up as a pass and fail. So a majority of our students will have a P and 2.5 credits already on their transcript.
If you don't see it there, reach out to your child's counselor, and then they'll check in case we didn't get the records from New Jersey Virtual School, and then we'll fix it.
Okay, so we can check it with parent.
You can click transcript right now in parent portal.
Okay.
Yep.
How does the community help the students? So that's a very broad question. So you're talking about like JBS community or like the township? So I think there's lots of ways for students to get help, depending on which kind of help you're thinking about. So like if it's in terms of like mental health and things like that, we have so many resources here at JP Stevens to connect families with. It's really something that's always increasing. Mental health fairs and wellness fairs, things like that. Again, just going back to connecting your student to the community in general, I would get them to come to the club fair so they could get involved in a club so they could feel like they belong. On top of that, there are things outside the community or outside of the community that are not part of JP Stevens that they should also get involved in. Yeah, absolutely. Church, temple, synagogue. So I don't. Not everything comes attached with like credits that they get from it.
Let's pause for a moment, and I think we'll wrap it up in the
Sure. All right. So thank you everyone for coming. Again, I would highly recommend coming to sending an email to your child's counselor if you have more questions, or I'll stay back for a couple of moments.
Yep.
But thank you so much. It's been a great audience, and looking forward to working with you.
All right, everybody.